Good morning. The session used to be called Open History, but in fact it's more about open scientific communication and collaboration by some examples in the field of history. I think we're all aware that nearly everything is communication. Actually, publishing an article is the most classical form of scholarly communication. And giving a talk at a conference is of course too. So as we are encouraged or even requested to open up our these essential ways of scientific communication by publishing open access or live streaming our conferences or video podcasts them, there are already so many other new and interesting tools or services to communicate or to collaborate with a scientific approach. We'd like to present a few of them, just a few of them, in particular blogs, Twitter, Zotero, and an e-portfolio system named Mahara. Some of us work together at the Max Weber Foundation Central Office in Bonn for the online team, especially the DE Hypothesis Community Management. Lisa is from the DHI Paris for DE Hypothesis 2. Another one of ours is late by train. She will arrive in just a few minutes, I hope, and will together present her Twitter project with Petra, who's from the University of Mainz. Franziska Heimburger works at the EHES in Paris and presents a collaborative online bibliography on Zotero. And Michael Krause from the University of Potsdam will present Mahara. And by the way, we are filming up the desktop presentation live on Google+, so if you want to follow us in the internet, you can see it there.
Okay, let's start with the blogging session. Scientific blogs have been, or blogs in general, have been around a while. It's nothing new on the internet. They offer an easy way to publish yourself on the internet. And there's, since 2011, a blogging portal for scientific blogs called hypothesis.org or hypothesis.org. Because it started in France, in Marseille, 2011. Nowadays we have over 2,000 different scientific blogs, which are sorted in different language portals. So you can look on de.hypothesis.org and find a lot of German-speaking articles which are selected by a scientific community to be presented to a larger audience. And you also have an English portal starting soon, hopefully a French portal, an international portal. The community management for the German-speaking portal is done by the Max Weber Foundation, which itself is has a lot of blogs themselves and use this as a tool to make the institutes in the world known in Germany as well. Part of the community management is also to spread the articles in social media like Facebook and Twitter. Then you have a catalog which also heightens the visibility of blogs that are actively written for a long time, and you can see there are now over 855 blogs in the catalog, but there are much more not yet in the catalog. There are over 2,000 on the European platform. To start a blog, it's not as easy as in general for blogging. You have to fill out a formulaire because we have to check if you're really a scientist, if you really have a topic to write about, and if you, or if you're some nerd writing about something totally different, which is not really scientific. But after that, you're totally free and you can write whatever you like. There's no one saying, oh, don't write this. in certain legal limits, of course, which we take care of a little bit too. And yeah, you can publish quite fast. You just have to write and push the publish button. But first, Lisa's gonna present to you some kind of blogs, different ways of blogging to give you an idea which way you can do it.
The question is, why should I blog and why do scholars blog? And I have some examples. For example, this blog is a blog of a researcher. A researcher can give information about their own project and to give also information to an audience who doesn't belong to the scientific community. And there are a lot of PhD blogs. There's PhD students who blog about their own PhD project in order to give more information, but also to give information about the scientific life which doesn't belong to the project, like attending to conferences and writing short abstracts. Then there are, of course, blogs of institution in order to increase the publicity of this institution and to give an overview about the scientific activities who take place in this institution. Then, of course, there are blogs of scientific projects, of research projects that is possible to talk about and to write about the everyday life of the project, and not only to present an article after a couple of months or a couple of years. Then there are blogs of scientific events. This is useful if you want to publish the proposals before the conference, and it's a possibility for for people who are interested in this conference but who cannot attend. For example, it's a conference which takes place in Moscow, and it's not that easy to go to Moscow if you live far away. Then there are blogs of scientific collectives. There it is possible to unite different researchers who are working on the same topic, and so it builds a community concerning a certain topic. Here it's about medieval history. And then the last example, there are a lot of archives who blogs who provide by blogging documents who aren't that easy to find. For example, if you want to read old documents, you can find them on those blogs of archives.
And now I'm happy to give you a quick demo how easy it is to use the blogging system, which runs in the background. It's based on WordPress. The hard part is to fill out the formula. When you have done that, you will get some login credentials, and I prepared a workshop log now, so you can see how it works. No, that's not the right one. So you type in your address, and I hope I remember the correct password. And you have two parts. You have a front end, which is visible publicly by everyone, but you also have a back end, which you can reach by adding admin to the link. In the back end, you have different options, a lot of options. You can add users, you can add links, media, upload pictures, but the most important is the posting session, and you will write a new post, a new blog post. So maybe the title will be the Foster session about open history, and I want to write about it. that's my article, and as soon as I hit on the publish button, this post will be online. And everyone can read this article. Compare that to publishing in a journal. It will take some years and a lot of time, a lot of effort. But you also can add media, like pictures from a presentation, or even videos and a lot of multimedia. I think that's enough to show you how quick it can be to publish on a blog. After that, you have to spread the news on social media, and so your article can be read by your peers. I think that's the demo. And then the next session will start, because, oh yeah, that's a good lead over, because how do you make people know that the new article is published? You need social media, so you'll find out now.
Okay. So you obviously know me already. I'm a little bit late. I was on the train and it was, don't know, got a little bit late to Göttingen. So this is Petra.
Yes, hi.
And I'm Charlotte Jans. And last year we did, together with 3 others, a project called at 9 Nov 38 in German, so 9 Nov 38. And it's a Twitter account about the Reichspogromnacht. So,
should I?
yeah.
Well, there are several. But it's very popular to use Twitter for tweeting historical events, like about the World War II. Or to publish historical pics. It's also another account, and Twitter is very useful for this, because there's a low threshold of reception. You don't need to go to a museum. You don't need to read a book. You can follow the account. And you can recept it in your timeline. Yeah.
So our inspiration was a Twitter account by the German broadcast station MDR, and they twittered live about the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, but these tweets were all fictional. There were some people trying to be like people from 1989 and what they would do at that time when the wall came down. So this was just fictional, and then our leader, Moritz Hoffmann, said, yeah, you can also do that with historical facts, and that's how we got to 9 Nov 38.
Yes, here you see our header. Yes, we try to try to be very accurate and very careful, because it's a difficult thing to write on Twitter. We made source criticism. We only use the sources which are reliable, and don't want to banalize with the event. Don't on the account about the I don't know.
Fall of the Wall.
Fall of the Wall, yes. You can. You have read Hans from Halle is listening to Milli Vanilli. It's not so important for the fall of the wall, and we try to be very we use the sources.
Yes. And most of us were or are still studying history. Moritz is actually PhD candidate at Heidelberg University, so we were a little bit afraid how the scientific community would react on that, but let's come to that later. Yeah, the problem was, is it possible to be scientific in 140 characters? And we also see that's still a problem, but we had an idea to give footnotes to our tweets, which we will show you later on. Then is Twitter a suitable medium for that topic, because there are people tweeting about what they eat today, and then there comes the tweet about the Reichspogromnacht, so is that okay? But actually we got nice feedback on that. And as Petra already mentioned, what do you want to tell and what do you leave out? Because there would have been people listening to the radio on 9th of November 1938, but we wouldn't tweet that because it's not important for our topic. Yeah, and then we did a lot of learning by doing.
Yes, we have nothing special planned. We have uses our personal accounts to react on reactions, on mentions or so on questions. We use this, also pictures. We use this. Yes, you know, see.
Yeah, we interacted with them, and there was also people telling because we were all through Germany. So this guy Ragnar Heil said, yeah, we tweeted about Felsberg in 1938, and he said, yeah, today there was actually some memory on that. And that's the other one's our first tweet that got 40 retweets, and at a certain point people from Twitter started to translate it into different languages, which wasn't intended by us but was great, because we then had tweets in French, in Dutch, in English of course, and I think Turkish was also there. Yeah.
Yes, also another thing, we came to our minds to make a blog for presenting sources which are longer than 140 characters, and also to give background information about it. Yes, also presenting the team, and under Reaktionen we
listed the media, the media representation of the project, because this is our sources. They are all online. You can find them in the blog. The blog is 9nov38.de. There's a link to that source. Actually, it's a Google Doc. So we have the link to the tweet, then the date it was published and the time it was published, the actual tweet, and then where that tweet comes from, which book it is taken from, and so on. So we wanted to be really, sorry, I don't get the word, transparent. Yeah. And then we got reactions we didn't thought we would get. The first one on 29th of October was a blog from a friend, so yeah, that's nice. But then there came the DPA, the German press agency. Then people from Hypothesis joined in, that was very nice too, so we had scientific community behind us. Then came the Tagesschau, which is like the major news show in Germany. This was also very nice, because these were fashion bloggers actually in a forum, and they said, yeah, we love it and it's great to read that. And this is one of my favorite ones, because we reach people
we normally don't reach. And then there was New York Times, which phone movers. And that's all.
Hi, my name is Franziska Heimberger. I work in Paris mostly. I'm a First World War historian, and I'd like to show you a little, fairly modest project in size, but it's something which I think other research areas, other domains could adopt. And it started like all really good ideas in a pub after a conference. In 2011, the International Society for First World War Studies had a conference. And afterwards we sat together and we wondered what could we as a scholarly society do for the First World War centenary. We haven't got great financial means, we can't digitize an awful lot of sources, but we are an academic community and we can contribute to the centenary. And the one thing that really rang a bell with us is the fact that there are so many academic publications on the First World War in all sorts of languages that it's very hard to keep up with them. Even if you can read several languages, it's hard to keep up with them, I find that. And we thought, what with 350 or 400 members in our society in all sorts of countries, we've got the resources to sort of track what's happening on the First World War and make sure that all our members can keep up with what's being published in the First World War. So we thought, right, we need a bibliography. How are we going to do this? We had a quick look at bibliographies which exist. Now this is probably too small for you to see the details, but essentially the top left-hand example is a Word file on a researcher's personal website. Top right-hand side is a static HTML page which is updated by a researcher. Bottom left-hand is some kind of a database, I'm not quite sure exactly what they use. And bottom right is the H Empire bibliography project on using Zotero. We looked at all of those. We liked them for certain reasons and not for others. You can obviously see disadvantages in practically all those formats. And all that went into our requirements. We wanted something which was easy to update, because we all know that any project like that, which is difficult and takes extra time out of people's days, won't happen. It'll be great when it starts out and everybody's keen, and then it'll slowly die as people run out of time and to look after it. It needed to be suited to a small international team of volunteers. We're not physically in the same place. We don't do this at the same time of day. So it needed to be digital in that sense. It needed to be useful, we thought, for people who use bibliographical software and people who don't, because our society, like most other learner groups, has both groups of people and different kinds of software. So we needed to make sure that it was accessible for all kinds of scientific users. And we wanted it to be useful for what the French have a great word, they call it veille scientifique, which is something which doesn't really exist as a word elsewhere. It's basically monitoring publications as they come out. So our choice in the end was for Zotero, which is the bibliography program which most of you probably know, as basically the back end. And we use it to pipe the references through to a website, the Society website, and also via the Zotero RSS feed to feed a Twitter account and the Facebook page. I'm not going to go into the details of the setup. I'll just show you an example that'll be far more elaborate. It's basically how it works. We all do this. This is where you see how old my slides are. I don't do this in Google Reader anymore. We keep up to date with publications on what we do. People use alerts, people follow people on Twitter. We all have our different ways. People get emails from colleagues who tell them what they've published. We all do this. What we do, my editorial committee for the bibliography, when we see something which we think would be interesting for our colleagues and needs to go in our society bibliography, we go and look at them, and then with one click we can import this into our Zotero group bibliography. It's a group bibliography, which means we all have access to it. We're feeding the same database. about 6 people in the editorial committee at the moment, but it might expand fairly soon. And we then add this reference in the appropriate category of our group bibliography. So you can see the details that go with it. And this then gets synchronized with the Zotero web server, which is how all of us in our different places in our respective countries can have this access to the same database. And it then also goes out and updates the society website. This is all automatically. Shows the newest editions. Now this is possible because Zotero has what's called an API. So it's basically an open end, so that I think you all know what an API is, so that we can plug it into things. And this is the really important point. When we thought about this setup, we wanted to be able to plug into lots of other tools. So this is what we've done. This uses SoftPress. And then we spread the word. It goes out by an RSS feed. That's automatic. It automatically feeds the Twitter account. It also automatically feeds the Facebook page. And if you click on the link on either the Twitter feed or the Facebook page, it takes you straight back to the Zotero website so you can get all the details. This means any society member and anybody else, because that was the other thing I wanted. I didn't really want to create a resource that's only accessible to my society members because it seemed like a lot of effort for a restricted amount of people. So this is open. We're doing this for the community. It's our contribution to the centenary. And very briefly, because I'm running out of time, this has been running like this for about 3 years. And so we've sort of got round to having our first couple of ideas of how it's working. This is the number of references that are available. I started out with a base of about 1,000 references that I entered to start with. Because the idea was I wanted it to be a useful resource from the start. I thought if we just start adding stuff randomly as we see it come out, it won't actually be useful for people. So you need to start with a sort of a set of references that is sort of not necessarily canonical, but at least representative. And we set out with the structure established. We thought about it beforehand, we looked at various reference books, published bibliographies, and thought about the structure and fixed that beforehand. And ever since, we've been adding references. So you can see the numbers going up. As of this morning, we're practically at 4,500 references. So you can see the number of publications that are going through and being added as they come out. These aren't necessarily new publications. We backfill as well, so if we realise there's a book from 2008 that isn't in there, we'll add it as well. Those are the languages of the references. A lot of English, but we're also fairly proud of keeping other languages up there. French and German, easiest for us, but we're working on getting other people in other languages more involved. And the reference types, books and articles, obviously. Chapters is really important. We try to, when we see there's an edited volume out, we try to make sure we get the chapters in, because that's the sort of thing that can be harder to find. It's easy to find the title of a book, but try to find the chapter details. Yes, and then the nice bit, of course, is then when you see the community in a larger sense interacting with it. I get to see people retweeting, faving links when they go out on Twitter. These are people who've seen a new publication and think, oh, I must go look at that. Same obviously goes for the Facebook page. I can see how many people have clicked on the links. And the other thing, recently, several colleagues said to me, because the society webpage shows the bibliography, it then appears in Google results. So therefore, when someone Googles the title of a book, in this case, you get a library page, and by the results 2 and 4, you're actually using our bibliography. When you see this page, 32, that's the society web page, which shows in real time the content of the Zotero bibliography, and it means that someone who was looking for one title will end up on a category list page where they can then find lots of other titles on the same topic. So that was something that was only become really prevalent recently. And it's really useful for it, so that takes you to this web page, and you can then see all the other references on the topic. Yeah, so that's basically the setup. It's something which could work for any domain. It's something that an individual can do with your topic that you're good on, that a small group can do, that a large group can do. One final thing, which is a question I'm often asked. It's not open in the sense of everybody can contribute, mainly for quality control reasons, because I want to make sure that the data in there is clean and that people can actually use it as is. So I basically accept anyone who wants to come and help. But we have a sort of guideline document of making sure that people actually enter the full details for each of the publications so that everybody can rely on the quality of the data in there. So yeah, I think it's a small, modest example of plugging together solutions which already exist. Nobody had to code anything for this to happen. So that's my idea of open history. Thank you.
Hello. Right, Michael Krause, Potsdam University. I want to shift the perspective to teaching, and I will introduce you briefly to what I see as the new or second generation of e-learning systems or environments which we can host in universities without need for other services, I would say, especially when we look at individual tools like blogs and wikis. You can get them online, of course, but I think during the last decade or so, since the first generation of systems like Moodle, Ilias, open source systems, really we got used to these. The Web 2.0 showed us that that much more is possible, and the idea and the spirit of Web 2.0 actually with this second generation of systems now comes to the universities, and Mahara is one of them. Another system we are looking at the moment, and we're probably pursuing this one, is Liferay, which doesn't come or didn't come in the beginning from an educational context, but is now moving in as more and more universities are making use of it. I work in a cross-disciplinary team in Potsdam with information scientists, developers, but also people like me who come from humanities disciplines and other disciplines, and we are trying to develop this in the spirit, as I've mentioned. And now, let me give you a brief overview what the difference is between these two types of e-learning environments, as I would say. And I would argue that the new generation of systems actually can do more. It's also valuable for organization, for collaborative work, and it brings it under the, let's say, it can be hosted by a university, which I think is a very nice thing. So the difference basically is we have a top-down course logic in Moodle and other learning management systems, and in that term we can see already the idea, which is quite top-down, and apart from that, the second generation of systems now has a more horizontal logic. Any user can open a collaborative workspace, a group, very much the social network logic, which we find here, can use the tools available like wikis, forums. People can share files, can build resources like pages, and publish them university-wide within the platform, but also if they've got the right, and that's something, of course, which universities have to look into, whether they want to give students the right to publish on the web as well, or maybe just on the platform. Right, let's start with Mahara. What you see here is the personal page. Any user has it. That is something that's the private domain of students as well as teacher and researching staff. You've got a public page as well. You can put something on it. You don't have to public on the network or on the platform. You've got different widgets, so you can actually also decide how you want to design your page, basically also your public page. you have a messaging system. You can, of course, bring RSS feeds into your personal space to be up to date with websites you want to follow. But you can also make links to group pages in which you move, in which you work with others. The other system, Liferay, looks a bit different. I mean, all the designs are obviously, you can change them as a university. Has a similar logic. We've got a personal space, private space, but here you've got more options, and that's why we are, as a university, a little bit more interested in Liferay. And what you can do basically is you also have calendars which you can synchronize. You can bring your email into your email service, your university email service. You can also integrate an Etherpad, for example, which we want to do. Like we are hosting it ourselves. A Dropbox, or kind of open source own cloud. It's called Dropbox. Yeah, several more, like library services, for example. It's got all the possibilities, and this is what I think allows us, as a second step, to think about these environments also in terms of giving students more autonomy when we teach them in research-oriented ways. So Mahara as a platform has been developed by higher education institutions for teaching and learning according to the portfolio idea. This includes this strong sense of a personal space for learners and the ability to publish resources to teaching staff, but also to other students. And what happens usually in a portfolio context is that a lot of material gets is being managed by students, and this is happening with increased autonomy. And then if students create groups, like we've got here, this is an example for a project I've taught with students together in a group, with a forum, with certain pages where people put content on, and documented research they did on the web. And in the end they wrote an essay, film critique, and this is, and then they shared files as well. So this is all happening within one space, but in a more horizontal way. So there's not this top-down logic between me as a teacher and them as students, although of course ultimately I'm in control because the institutional setting, of course, is given. But students can, here we see, let's do that first before I get to the submission function, which is very helpful, so students can submit material. Let's see here another example from Liferay, where you also have groups, of course, and you see on the left side there that you can also add all the other tools as you wish, basically. So it gives you a lot of freedom within a group to say what kind of work should be done in the group. And you can manage web resources as well as you do in a browser. Not as good as in Zotero, for example, but you've got a lot of, they're called widgets. Some of you might be familiar with this term. You can drag into, and it's basically drag and drop, drag into the space, build pages, and have a workspace, as we also intend to call it. yeah, let's get back to this Mahara project I did. And what you can see here in the left, lower left side is pages shared with this group by others. And that's a function which is very helpful because it allows students to produce work in their personal space and then share it with me as a teacher. I can either go to my personal space and see, I will be informed by the system that a page has been shared with me by a student, but I can also, in the form of a widget, which is happening here on the group dashboard, which everybody in the group sees, I can also make visible the kind of submissions that have been done by fellow students to other students. Can make that visible. I can bring in, of course, for example, by iframing, can bring in video from YouTube. Of course, copyright comes into this. If I intend to publish a page, for example, but as long, in this case, obviously, the material is there as the official trailer, for example, for a film to be used, and don't see copyright problems there. Right, to finish, I would say there are the two platforms. Here you can see forum discussion, and most of you are probably familiar with forum discussions also in the academic and educational contexts. To finish, let me close with some remarks. Why I think that these new platforms, these systems are so helpful for giving us more research, or making more research orientation possible, and that's because they give students more autonomy, but also us, in the way they manage material, in the way they share material, in these workspaces or groups. As I said, also layout and content can be changed by users. That's basically, yeah. For now, I think to wrap up what I wanted to say. Is there time to show another example? No. Okay, then. Thank you for your attention, and I hope for a discussion later on.